Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in, and as promised, this is my Wonder Woman review. Wonder Woman is officially a smash success. It is doing well financially, critically, audiences are loving it, critics are loving it. It is truly a triumph, and I am very excited and nervous about doing this review because while I really did enjoy the movie, I thought the movie was good, I did have some technical things that I was kind of iffy about, and then my own just personal feelings on certain choices that were made towards the Wonder Woman mythos that may just be my own personal tastes, not necessarily something that will ruin the movie or be a flaw to everyone who sees the film. I just feel the need to voice them and voice them openly because I don't want the need for Wonder Woman to be a success to make it sort of escape criticism. I've been seeing a lot of reviews that talk about how just women positive it is, and the womanhood that's portrayed in the film. And I've only seen it once. I am going to see it again because I do think it's a movie that I need to see once critically and once just as a fan. Good movie because it's a good movie. It doesn't need to be hyped up or propped up by anything extra. And I don't think that it's fair to say that people are only giving it praise because it's a Wonder Woman film, because there is just so much emotionally writing on it compared to other films. I mean, if you read the reviews for certain places, it's like, if Wonder Woman isn't good, female superhero movies are just fucked. And it's like, that's a terrible message, because there have been super, super bad DC male-led movies, and we have not been worried about there wasn't going to be a Justice League movie. Even with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, Justice League was going to be a thing. So the idea that Wonder Woman has to be perfect is ridiculous. And I think as much as it's symbolically important for Wonder Woman to be on screen, and it is, because whether or not you are a fan of Wonder Woman or you love that character, the point is that Wonder Woman is the most important comic book female superhero in our history. And the fact that she has not had her own live action big budget movie is a shame. It is just a travesty, and I am glad that it's being course corrected. However, we cannot forget that this idea that we cannot forget that there have been female superhero movies, and while they have been bad, we have had them, and that as we move forward in promoting female positive media, we have to be more inclusive, because at the end of the day, Wonder Woman, while it is a movie that showcases primarily one very powerful woman, we have to realize that propping up one chosen female does not necessarily create an inclusive environment for all women. And I just want to make that very clear. If you are interested and are going to keep watching, please press that like button and subscribe and share with anyone you think would enjoy listening to my stupid voice. And let's get into Wonder Woman. Okay, so the things that I really enjoyed about the film is that, for one, it is shot beautifully, and Gal Gadot really shines in most of this film. I think that she really embodies the character in a way that is beautiful without fetishizing her. I never feel like they are turning Diana into a sexualized object, even though her beauty is talked about all the time. It feels earned because she really is beautiful. The narrative doesn't treat her like a sex object. She is more true to someone who is beautiful, and I think that there is a difference between the two. In fact, with all the Amazons, they're all kind of just, beautiful, strong women. And there were a lot of, even though I don't think this is sort of, great representation, there was a lot of color diversity on the island, which I appreciated. There were a lot of dark-skinned black women there, and I was just and dark-skinned women in general there, and I was just that's really good to see, because they have always sort of had that kind of background diversity in Themyscira, and it was good to see that really portrayed in the film. I was happy that the only real fan service we got was an almost nude scene with Steve Trevor, which was the film does a really good job of showing Diana's power and showing how powerful she is. The limits of her power, I think, are kind of weird and wonky and sort of contradict things from BVS, but that movie's garbage, so it doesn't really matter. I really feel like they got this part of Diana really well. I enjoyed her naivete and her innocence, and sort of seeing the character go on this journey of being someone who really is who sort of like shifts the line between being naive and optimistic, and not losing that optimism, but instead becoming an optimistic pragmatist. And I think that that's a really good thing to see, like not just going into that bitter and resentment and not just seeing, you know, this world for all its evils, but thinking, no, I can go out and I can fix it. And I think that they really showed that Diana is a warrior in the sense that she is ready to go into battle with her with the army and fight and be in the front lines and spill blood if she has to, but she does want a peaceful solution. And if she thinks she can save the most lives and the most innocents by hurting only one person rather than, you know, actually going into a huge war, she would prefer to do that. And I think that's also a really good message, because sometimes we just get so bloodthirsty in terms of revenge that we're not thinking about the innocence that could be lost on both sides. And I think Diana never loses sight of that, even when it's made clear that there's supposed to be a side that we're rooting for and a side that we're not rooting for. And I think that's really good to do with World War I, because it's not as clean cut as World War II, even though there's like the Allies and the Axis powers. You know, there is no Nazis in World War I in the terms of like, we're committing human atrocity. That's like, there was really weird treaties driven up and now we all have to fight each other and it's really hard and everything's gonna come falling apart. And I also feel like Gal did a really good job of not making it come off as annoying. Like, I think the hardest part about these kind of like Little Mermaid sequences of just like the female character kind of looking around in wonder is just that it usually undermines her power. And I think that it was frustrating at times to have Steve just always have to be like pulling her in center, like she was like treating her like a child, because I don't think that it's, naivety doesn't always have to mean childlike, like I can't walk by myself, or, you know, but I don't feel like they overly did that. I think it made sense considering where she was coming from for her to be sort of like just enraptured by things. But I do understand for some people that it could be a little grating to have her just be like, you know, just like completely enthralled with everything in kind of a childlike manner. But I don't think that's a terrible thing, because Gal did such a good job with it. I feel the supporting cast also was just really good, especially Robin Wright as Antiope. Like, that was, she just seemed so strong and so powerful. Like, I really believed her as an Amazon. The same thing with Connie Nielsen as Hippolyta. I think they were both amazing. Hippolyta's outfit was amazing. When she was going in there looking like the White Queen from Narnia, I was like, yes, destroy everything. They just looked really, really good. And I feel like the Steve's band of merry men were also all really good. I enjoyed them all, teaching Diana about the racism around the world. Like, yeah, he's brown, he can't get a job. Steve's people killed Chief's people. It was very lip service. Like, the man's world is evil in many ways, not just in the one. And I think that's kind of interesting as well. Like, getting into like, how does Diana feel about all the evils of the world? Like, does she have a side that she would pick, and what would that side be? I think that the idea of Diana wanting all people to be free is an interesting one, especially because of the origins of the Amazons in the comics, not so much the origin that they put in here, which I think is kind of dumb, but I'll talk about that later. The chemistry between Steve and Diana I thought was solid. I think that it's all very like meet cute. I mean, it's very easy to compare them to Peggy and Steve from Captain America, the First Avenger, just because the movies are very similar in terms of what they're doing and how their characters are structured. I mean, they're not like mirror images of each other, but they do have very strong similarities. And I think that their meet cute in in this movie works just fine for what the movie wants to do and where the characters go. I don't think it needs to be this big drawn out thing. I mean, she is gorgeous, he's hot, like, they're two attractive people who want to bone. There's no other attractive people in this movie for them to have sex with, so they have to have sex with each other. That's just the rules. And they know that. And so I can understand why Steve's character would be annoying, because essentially Steve is Diana's love interest, and he does more than any love interest we've ever seen. I mean, he gets to have whole storylines and arcs and stuff for himself that are completely separate from Diana, even though their stories are interlinked. But he gets to basically be his own entity separate from Diana, which is not a privilege that a lot of female love interests get to have. I mean, Lois Lane becomes completely attached to Clark's reality and pulled into his fear, and her kind of own work doesn't really get showcased. It's all about him and how she can help Clark. And this has been a constant problem that most of these love interests have. So to see Steve have so much prominence just reminds us kind of that gender disbalance of the fact that Steve is a guy and gets to do all of these things and have his conflicts be perfectly equal to Diana's conflicts in the narrative, which is quite frankly a privilege that only he would have and nobody else. And that's an unfortunate thing. It really should be done better to have the love interest and the main character really have equal footing so that we understand why they see each other as equals. Steve's choices and actions in the film and having him go through all these things make him a good partner for Diana and make us understand why she would have feelings for him. Whereas most of the time it just is, it's a meet cute of two attractive people and there's no real depth going on there. While it's good that they had that in here, I do hope in the future they are able to give that same nuance to their female love interests. So overall, I do think that the direction, the pacing, the storytelling were solid. However, I did not really care for all of the slow-mo. I think that some of the slow motion really took away from sort of pivotal scenes because it made it look comical. Like, there were some action sequences that they would slow down, and I was like, I understand why you want to do this, but instead of making this be like one really cool quick shot, it instead turns into something silly. I think that most of the time slow-mo makes action look silly because you're seeing, the sort of like in between awkwardness, like if when you freeze frame a video when someone's talking and you see their face look like, that's kind of what it looks like. It just looks like something ridiculous that you really shouldn't have been privy to. And it just kept me from being fully immersed in the film. And the most egregious shot of it, I think, is when Diana first starts walking across no man's land and kind of like one of the big scenes, and it was just real because the slow-mo and the wind machine was just making her look like she was walking down the runway and not running into battle. And I just thought it was a very poor choice. And sort of like, her coming up that trench is such a great shot. That's why it's in all the trailers and in the posters. But then you get this kind of like catwalk moment and it just kind of takes you out of that really cool scene at least for me it did, of like, oh, this is really cool. Why are you walking down the runway? It was an odd choice, and I think it was just one of those things where we really want to have this like really wide power shot, but it all together didn't come off as powerful. It came off more as silly. Going back to Gal, I think that she did a really good job overall. I know she got a lot of flack for not seeming strong enough, and I will be real with you, there were times in the film where I did sort of just like wish that I was getting this film with like Tomb Raider era Angelina Jolie, because I think that I just think that she's kind of a better actress than Gal Gadot. I think that Gal did a good job, but like there were some emotional scenes where I didn't really feel like she connected with me. And maybe it just may have been me, but I just didn't feel like she sold all of those scenes for me. I thought she was good, but there were parts where I was like, I wish that, another actress could have gotten this role. Like, I really feel like Tomb Raider Angelina Jolie was just really good at being like kind of like that innocent flirty way, but also being like a very strong, powerful, emotional actress. And I think that that was really needed in certain scenes. Not every scene, but in certain ones where I felt like that person could have sold that better. But I think that Gal will continue to grow. I mean, she is still relatively new to acting, and I think that she overall really owns the role and will grow into it. But it was just one of those things where I was like, there's still some room for her to eventually get to that point. The villain was weak. Like, I feel like Ares is just a shit villain in general, but, like, Ares was just kind of a very weak villain overall. And I think it's just hard because Wonder Woman doesn't have a really great rogues gallery. I mean, it's mostly like the Greek gods, which we can't do in this series because they fucked up. But it's just a matter to me of like, he's just a whiny baby, Ares, in this film. And I really did not appreciate the like Christianification of like Zeus and Ares, like making Zeus this kind of like creator deity and having Ares go through this whole like paradise lost Satan bullshit. It was just very, it took away some really important things to me. And I guess I can start getting into it now. So a lot of the articles that I've been reading after I watched the movie, we talk about like the themes of womanhood and women unity and all those strong female characters that are in the film. And to me, it's slightly exaggerated, personally, because to me, once we leave Paradise Island, Themyscira, we really don't get much female interaction. Like, the only woman that of prominence, of name, that Diana interacts with is Etta Candy. And Etta is more talking at Diana or talking to Steve about Diana than actually communicating with Diana. There is no equal to Diana on the field. You know, she doesn't have a friend or an ally. It's just her bonding with a group of men, half of them who are all lusting after her. And, you know, it's that womanhood isn't there. I mean, the Amazons don't even refer themselves as sisters. I mean, the only... and Antiope and Hippolyta do because they actually are sisters, but the idea of them being a sisterhood is never really brought up in the film. And also by making Zeus, like, in everything, Zeus created the Amazons, which to me is just like, that's garbage. I don't like their change of the Amazon origin. In the comics, in different incarnations it changes, but like in the original one, when Wonder Woman first came out, the Amazons were just, you know, the Amazons, and Heracles essentially tricks and manipulates Hippolyta and steals her magic girdle, which is a gift from Aphrodite, which, you know, gave them all strength. And eventually Aphrodite takes pity on them and she helps them escape and free themselves, and they eventually go and form Paradise Island. And actually, the bracelets that they wear are a reminder of their enslavement, and that's why they wear those bracelets. And in the original, basically, the Amazons had access through this magic sphere to all of the technology that was going on in man's world, and even some like precognition. So they were able to have a technologically advanced society within Themyscira without having to connect with the man's world. In the Perez run of Wonder Woman, which is one of my personal favorites, I've actually been rereading it, it's the same kind of thing. The Amazons were specifically made by the goddesses of the Greek goddesses to kind of counteract the evils of mankind and to sort of balance out Ares' influence that he had on the world by creating these kind of like powerful female creatures. And it was actually Artemis's idea. And so all of these female deities, especially, you know, Athena, Artemis, Hera, and Aphrodite, are super important in Wonder Woman stories, and they've all been completely axed out. And this is not being brought up, and I don't know why. Like, by removing all of these powerful women from the narrative, you are not creating a womanhood or a woman-centric story. You're creating a story about one woman, Wonder Woman. And I get that that in itself is an important story to be told, but then you're just talking about one special snowflake. You're not talking about all the women, especially because, you know, most of the women on Themyscira are nameless. We don't know who they are. They're just kind of there to fill space for me to be satisfied completely with their portrayal. I think that they did a good job, but to me it wasn't good. It wasn't good enough. And those changes definitely influenced that to me. I also am not a fan of the change of Diana's origin. I'm not going to get into it right here. I'll talk about it briefly when I do spoilers, which aren't a lot, but just a few. I don't like it because to me, what I like about Wonder Woman that makes her powerful is her coming from Amazons and her coming from that female energy and not having anything to do with that world, of her wanting to protect it, wanting to go out there and make it better. But essentially, the fact that she was born and created and cultivated separately from that she's not corrupted by all of those evils, but she is a warrior, she is strong, she's talented because she's an Amazon. And that's important to me. And I feel like that is slowly being lost. And it's not because of this film, it's a New 52 thing. I'm not a fan of the New 52 I'm not a fan of the New 52's depictions of the Amazons or of Wonder Woman. I don't think it's badly written. I just think that it does a poor job of continuing sort of the female positive themes of the Wonder Woman mythology that have been with it for so long. And I really just feel like it does an overall disservice to the characters. I know people who love that run and like swear by it. I just don't mess with it personally. I also have a problem with it because by removing the element of the Amazons being like coming from a persecuted group of women, I think also nullifies certain scenes, like when Diana's talking to people about oppression and stuff, she would be able to connect more with it because she understands where that comes from. The Amazons know what it's like to be persecuted, to be defeated, to be broken, and that's why they're separate from man's world. They're not separate from man's world just for the sake of it. They're separate for it because they have lived through the suffering of being put down, spat on, harassed, assaulted by men. They're not just there, living their best lives just 'cause. It's as the result of something tragic that happened to them, and this is their way of sort of maintaining their spirits and purifying themselves and staying whole in a hard circumstance. And also, I like the fact that in the Perez version, Ares basically uses Heracles' male fragility to kind of turn him into a bad guy, which I thought was quite on point. And I also am disappointed that they didn't really go anywhere with all the queer aspects of Wonder Woman. I mean, they do the whole thing of like, are you like an average man in terms of your dick size? And they do the whole thing like, well, they said that men aren't really for pleasure and blah blah. And Antiope's second in command is kind of, you can read her as the girlfriend to Antiope, but they've just done such a better job. And like, I know in Earth 1 Wonder Woman, they make it very clear that Dinah has had lesbian relationships, and it just seems weird to me that we're trying to avoid the conversation that an island full of women would have women who have sex with other women in it. I get that really what they want to do with this film is to just make a good superhero movie. I get that. But at the same time, this movie is also trying to get so much feminist cred that it has to also be a solid intersectional feminist movie. And if it's not going to be that, we should at least be able to bring that up while saying that it's, that we enjoyed it, but here are the issues that we have with it. Overall, I feel like if you liked Captain America: The First Avenger, you're going to like this movie. I think that it's a solid film. I think it's well made. I think that I disagree with some of the choices that are made for the characters, but I think that it doesn't make it bad. It doesn't make it uninteresting. I just think it has different flavors. To me, I don't think it's amazing or the next Dark Knight, although I don't know why that's always the barometer for a good comic book movie. I think it's a solid film. I would give it personally a B+, and I would definitely encourage anyone to go out and see it. And I'm looking forward to see what happens next. And I'm really, really glad that it's doing well. I think that even with the critiques I do have of it, this movie means so much to so many people. And although that may be sort of biased and unfair, it's the fault of the society for making it so that this is so necessary and so thirsted for that people have this hunger and sexual need. Like, I just need to see it. Like, there's some people who like people who are like, I haven't seen a superhero movie, but I need to see Wonder Woman because it's Wonder Woman. I'm going to go slightly briefly into spoilers, not too deep, because I don't think there's many that need to be talked about, but just a few things that sort of bothered me. So if you don't want to know about spoilers, have a great rest of your day and go see Wonder Woman. It is a solid film. As for spoilers, so here's the few things that bother me. So I hate Diana being Zeus's child. I hate it so fucking much. Too much Zeus. I don't want Zeus being given good shit. But he's a rapist. I don't want her father to be a rapist. I don't want that to be origin. I don't like it in the Earth one where she's also Hercules' kid, kind of, sort of. It's kind of weirdly implied that, like, I don't like it. I don't like any of it. I don't appreciate it. I like Diana being born of sand and lesbian power. plus Hermes. I also kind of felt cheated because, and my friend actually brought this up, not me, that Diana shows more grief over the death of Steve Trevor over the death of seeing her sisters and seeing death essentially for the first time. And I think that that's a really big problem. And it goes back to the whole womanhood thing. It's like, we're supposed to see these women as a society, but when they fall, we're not given time to really mourn them. And they also fall so easily. I mean, they have bulletproof bracelets, but they don't have bulletproof armor. Like, their armor is made of that same material to protect them. It just didn't really click for me. I also feel like the twist about Ares was not that great. And I know I haven't really, and I feel like that was not very interesting. And it's like, okay, it's Lupin. And you figure that it's gonna be, he's gonna be something bigger than just the Chancellor, because it's fucking Remus Lupin. Like, people know who he is. He's gonna be something more important. I figured he was either gonna be like a bait and switch Ares, or he was gonna be like, I'm Zeus. I also hated all the scenes where Hippolyta was like, should you tell her who she is? She will find out in her own time. Just tell the truth. Tell the truth. Like, why do people always are like, I'm gonna hide the truth from my child because that'll keep her safe? Has never worked ever. Tell your kids the truth about their secret divinity and they will be smarter. Yeah, those are my only like spoiler things about Wonder Woman. Overall, thought it was good. Go out and see it. Have a good time. I'll see you guys later.